Prefab architecture is
Hey
having a
guys,
moment. Prefab home.
welcome to Blueprints and Barbells. We recorded a whole section, and my mic was off, so we're gonna redo this. Hopefully everything records. I should actually double check before, but I see the mic thing moving, so we're good. So we're gonna talk about prefabricated homes. I actually worked on these type of homes and for 2 years. Part of my job is working with these homes, creating a kit of parts, which was basically developing everything in Revit, from your floors, your nails, your structure, your plumbing, everything. So it's basically a whole documentation of how you would build this thing. If say I was to sell it to you, right? You would know exactly how many pieces of wood, how many pieces of panels, etc., etc. So this is a topic that I'm pretty well known in, from a practical sense of actually being on the construction side, not the architectural side. So we'll get to see this video. It's pretty interesting. It has a lot of history. We'll see what he has to say.
Homes are faster and cheaper to build than traditional homes.
They are
They
faster.
promise less waste,
Cheaper
more sustainability,
depends.
and they have
It's the economy of
flexibility
scale,
to be
right?
shipped to almost any
So if you
location in the
can,
world, which
if you
seems
order a
perfect for
bunch,
a
then yes, it'd
population
be
that is able
cheaper.
to work remotely
I
more than
believe the
ever
ones we were
before.
working
But
on
this
were
isn't the first
pushing
time
it
that
at
prefab architecture has been talked about as the future of
150
housing.
per square
So why
foot.
isn't that future now? Hi, I'm Michael Wyetzner, and I've been an architect for over 35 years. And today, we're going to look at the many lives of prefab architecture, from its ancient origins to its modern innovations, and see why it could be the future of home building, but it probably won't be.
Exactly. I know where he's heading.
First off, the word prefab is short for prefabricated, which just means that the components of a building are created in one place and assembled in another. The earliest forms of prefab housing were created.
So prefabrication is exactly how he said it. So it can be, there's all kinds of types, right? You can have the full modules completed, or we worked that it was a full module completed, shipped, assembled on site. There wasn't really much assembling, right? It was all the plumbing was including, all the furniture was included, everything exterior. You would have to leave about a half-inch gap between the units so you could finish it off. There's also back in the 1940s, when the GIs came back, there was the Sears catalog. They would sell you a kit of parts, right? So they send you all the parts already and ready to assemble. You put them together. That's a prefabricated home. The other type would be they ship to you like all the walls completed already, or there's companies that do that. They'll assemble the walls, everything, and they just come and pop it up together. So that's all what prefabrication means.
Tens of thousands of years ago by nomadic peoples around the world, including the Native American teepee, the Mongolian yurt, the Sami lavu,
I call it a stretch if these are
Although they go
prefab.
by many names,
I mean,
these structures
yes,
are all
but they weren't
variations
assembled somewhere
of
else and
text.
brought to site,
A
right?
lightweight frame with some
These
sort
were
of
assembled on
fabric or
site with their
animal hide
environment,
stretched over it.
the
In
the
fact,
buffaloes
the
they
word
killed, the
text comes from
hides,
the
all
Latin
that.
word
So that was all
tendere, which
assembled
means
on
to
site,
stretch.
and they
These
would
tent
carry them
structures
around.
could be
So it wasn't
disassembled
exactly
and
prefab.
reassembled quickly,
I mean, you
and were
could
also
say
lightweight
prefab, right?
and
They
easy to
assembled it
carry.
somewhere,
The
and
fact that they
they
had a
just keep using
uniform
it somewhere
design
else.
and relatively few parts meant that new ones could
But
be
he's right
created
on. It
quickly
is
with
a
minimal
relative
time and
to
materials. Later, the
prefabrication.
Romans would build on this idea.
Romans really took it to the next level.
Panels to quickly build forts
The
on
trebuchets,
battlefields. And in the
everything, their
mid-1800s, architect
military
Joseph Paxton
weapons were
created
all
the Crystal
prefabricated.
Palace for the first World's Fair
Yep.
in London, creating a nearly 1 million.
So this is probably one of the first true prefabricated structures. And if you can see just this image alone, you see all these arches are the same, right? Boom, 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 boom. All the same everywhere, all the same. And that, that brought costs down. He was able to assemble this in relatively quickly time. And then it also has the extra bonus that because he created these arches as part of the pre-manufactured module, it allows this distribution of the force coming down. So structurally, this is probably really sound. The quickness in which he built it was amazing. We probably could do another video on that, but it was, for the World's Fair, this was never seen before.
Square foot building entirely out of glass panels that were all exactly the same size.
And you see here this image too. Look, every module is the same. Boom, boom, boom. Even the curved truss at the top. It's really just a repetition of trusses all across, distribution of weight all the way down. So the key to this working in that time and era was these arches, which you see a lot of these arches in old school Gothic architecture. It's why you see flying buttresses and arches in old school architecture, because arch is the main principle in force that distributes. You can distribute a lot of force through them, or the domo in Rome, all that. But Brunelleschi.
10 inches by 49 inches. But although this idea of prefabrication had been a part of human history for tens of thousands of years, it wouldn't be applied to the idea of permanent housing in a meaningful way until after the Industrial Revolution. The Industrial Revolution was the birth of mass manufacturing, using patterns and specialized equipment to make an identical product at a massive scale. Then in 1901, the assembly line was patented by Ransom E. Olds, the founder of Oldsmobile, and was later famously improved by his competitor, Henry Ford, who introduced automated...
And we still use that manufacturing kind of assembly line in prefabricated homes. Where we worked at, we had a giant rail system where the homes would come by, or the modules would come by in pieces.
In 1848, gold was discovered in a mine in Northern California. And starting the next year, in 1849, around 300,000 people moved to San Francisco and the area around it to make their fortunes. And these 49ers, as they were known, needed homes.
49ers.
But there weren't enough home builders locally.
Shout out to my
meet
home
the
school.
demand. And so, as the gold rush attracted people from across the United States, the Pacific Islands,
I hope he's going to draw. He has some tracing paper there.
Created for the first time
I hope he does.
Less than 1 year after the gold rush.
You guys don't get the joke. Every architect carries tracing paper. I have a roll somewhere on here.
From New York to San Francisco. And that number doesn't even include those produced in Philadelphia, Boston, Maine, or China. Often called kit homes, these early prefab homes were very simple. After the gold rush, these kit homes would become more complex.
I think the ones during the war were called Shady
larger,
Towns?
more varied in
Shandy
style.
Towns?
And
I forget the name.
Mail order houses
I gotta
took
go
off
back to my
among
history
home
book.
buyers around the United States. Probably the most famous architect to design some of these early kit homes was Frank Lloyd Wright. This is an example of one of the early houses that he designed, which he called American System Built Home.
Yeah.
And what I find remarkable about this prefabricated house is how much it looks like all of his other prairie-style houses that he built custom for very wealthy clients. It's got all these great horizontal lines. It's got the deep roof overhang. It's got the horizontal windows that wrap around. It's got the planters out front that sort of transition from the lawn to a low planter.
Look at that. He's using a Lamy fountain pen. I'm telling you guys, if you guys love writing, get yourself a fountain pen. You could get all kinds of crazy inks. Lamy is a German company. They have produced really great. I actually have one. Here we are. You guys could see it. Oh, let me see here. So mine is this blue one. You guys can see the tip. Oh, let's see the tip there. I think I have like a kind of brown loaded in here. So you see, you can pull off the top, and then you see the converter where you put your ink in. So these are great for drawing because you can put as many inks as you want. These are super cheap. These are like $30, I think.
Higher planter, and I love that he put this what appears to be
Prairie Style is amazing.
In fact, the whole idea was that he was offering a Frank Lloyd Wright designed home at a very inexpensive price.
And Frank Lloyd Wright is like, I guess this conversation goes back to, I think, when we were in school, right? What is American style architecture? Realistically, there wasn't an American style architecture because America itself is a combination of many different cultures, right? Many different influences. I think the one true, like, I guess it developed, right? Before, during, they used to call them shotgun houses. So that was kind of the style, is a shotgun house, which is basically a house that you'll see a lot in like the South. It's, entry point all the way through to the back. You see straight through it. It's a shotgun house. But even a lot of that New Orleans kind of style was developed of different cultures, African cultures mixing with the architecture. It wasn't until Frank Lloyd Wright came along, he developed the prairie style, which is here. What you see is his idea of merging the outdoors with the indoors and flat plains and compression expansion. So really, Frank Lloyd Wright was American architecture. Mies van der Rohe, which created a lot of the skyline of Chicago, that was really called international style. And he kind of led the way in that. So basically, Frank Lloyd Wright is the American style, right? And even then, a lot of Frank Lloyd Wright's style is influenced by Asia, so a lot of cultures. So the U.S. doesn't have a style. It's more of like its style is the ability to merge and combine different styles and cultures into architecture.
From his mail order line. That was his pitch. The other thing I find that's so interesting about this is that typically Frank Lloyd Wright homes are, often in remote places.
That's true.
In cities.
I've been to that one, LA.
But never clustered together like these are on one street. Very few of these still exist, but there happen to be 6 of them on one street called Burnham Street in Milwaukee. And it's sort of
Milwaukee,
gives you
I gotta go.
glimpse
Wait,
of what people
I think I have a
imagine the
site
future
visit
of
to
housing
Milwaukee. I gotta go
would be
see
like.
these.
But Wright wasn't the only one offering kit homes, or even the first one to do so. By far the largest manufacturer of kit homes was Sears Roebuck and the lesser-known Aladdin Company. The Sears catalog offered
there you go,
Sears
Sears catalog
of styles and sizes.
And a lot of these homes are still existing. So if you go a lot to these older suburban neighborhoods, and oftentimes these high-end neighborhoods now are actually these kit homes. And they look amazing, to be honest. Like, I wish we can do that now, sell this, but like it's, you have so many codes now that you have to follow, right? Before it was just you buy your land and you built your home.
Ordered a home from the Sears
Now you have all the
catalog.
red
They
tape
would
of
provide
permits
you
and all that
with
good
the
stuff.
pieces cut to
And you guys
size.
will see right away, like you guys might know these homes. You might walk by them, like they still exist. Very well built.
The nails and the screws and the directions.
And oftentimes we'll hear the criticism, right? Oh, they don't build the homes like they used to. No, like those homes have problems. Try being in one of those homes in a hot summer, and if it wasn't designed to allow fresh air through, it's hot. I think homes today, the craftsmanship is not as well as it was back in the day, but the materiality, the energy efficiency are much better today now than they were back in the day.
Just like a flat-packed piece of furniture that you would buy today. Sears Modern Homes, as they were called, offered over 370 designs, and they sold more than 70,000 kit homes from 1908 to 19.
There's actually an excellent book about all the kit homes and the history. I recommend everybody read that, even if you're just aficionado. Your home might be a kit home if you live in something before 1940s.
Still had to lay the foundation, provide the plumbing, and provide the electricity, and they had to do that all themselves or pay somebody else to do it. Which brings up a point of clarification about prefab homes. Some types of prefab houses are more prefabricated than others. At one end of the spectrum, you have these kit homes, which arrive in pieces.
Oh, look at those
our
diagrams.
firm has actually designed a kit
Nice.
home of this type. My partner Frank Micheli devised an ingenious system for transporting a 2,000 square foot home in a single shipping container. Then there was a middle ground where some component parts.
I mean, that's actually pretty interesting. So I think what he's trying to say, like a typical shipping container, right? You're going to fit everything in there. So it's going to be a small home. Where we used to work at, our limits on shipping were basically the size of the truck bed, both length and width. That was your module. You could get a longer bed and use it's like a cable. I forget what's like a cable truck bed.
Even entire rooms are pre-assembled in a factory and then attached on site. And it ranges all the way to homes that are completely built in a factory
that's pretty much the
setting
process
and shipped
still.
to the location fully
There's that
assembled.
track.
But even this last type of home will need a foundation, a connection to the sewer system or a septic field, and electrical power from the local grid or a generator. So let's take a look at some of these other types of prefab houses, starting with an entirely prefabricated version, the trailer.
Hey,
So this is probably the most famous of the trailers. And one of the
the
first,
Streamline.
the Airstream. And here's everything
it's
that jumps out
Airstream,
at me.
sorry.
It's got this sort of capsule shape.
Yep.
It's streamlined. And I also love that it's completely made out of metal. It's aluminum.
Imagine how hot it would get,
lightweight.
though.
It's a single axle. It's fantastic. So it's only one set of wheels.
So I guess
And
this
it's very
goes to
reminiscent
show
of trains and
architecture's
airplanes.
influence, right?
And in fact, many
It's not
of those
just
trailers were designed
buildings.
to use
A lot of our
surplus
designs,
military
influence, and
material.
ideas come from
And what's
different
totally cool
fields,
about
different
it
products,
is you hitch
everything.
it up to your station wagon
We
and
gather
you take it
information
anywhere.
from everywhere. It
So
could
just like
be
the first wave of
tech,
prefab housing in the
everything, and then that can help us
was
drive
fueled
a
by
design.
manufacturing. So was a rapid rise in the number of people who owned cars in the United States in the early 1900s. This meant that people could travel more often and farther afield than ever before.
Yeah.
But at the time, there were relatively few hotels and places to stay compared to today. And that led to a demand for what was called a motor home, which you could hitch to your car and take with you
Trailer
around the country.
homes.
Because so many people were traveling this way for recreation, it led to the creation
Call back
of
to
mobile home
gypsies,
parks.
right?
These
We're gypsy
started in
caravans.
California, where they were originally just campgrounds with access to
And those campgrounds are still
park their
around.
campers. But starting in the 1920s, these mobile home parks became places
Yeah.
for permanent residents. which
That's
led to
true.
different designs for mobile homes. First of all, these trailer homes.
I kind of sad he's
have no
not drawing on
axles,
them,
they
man.
have no
Draw. Put the
wheels,
tracing paper on
and
them.
that's because they're not meant to be pulled behind a car. In fact, these arrive at their site on the back of a flatbed truck.
Yep.
So what I love about this image is that all of a sudden, the designs of these mobile homes have become more like regular homes. You see a pitched roof with faux shingles on it, and you see the screen door and the double hung windows, more like you would find in an actual house. They have these access roads where you can pull your car into a driveway, as you can see
Yeah.
right here and right here. So they're creating this village out of these truly prefabricated homes. So these homes were very affordable, but quite often things that are inexpensive get associated with things that are low quality. And the term trailer park all of a sudden got associated with low quality homes.
I mean, we all saw it
which
growing
gave
up, right?
prefabricated
Well, I knew that
architecture
friend that lived in the
sort of a
trailer
bad
park.
reputation. But despite their lack of glamour, mobile homes might be the most successful version of prefabricated architecture we have to date. In fact, around 6%
Thousands,
of Americans live in
millions.
mobile homes.
There you go.
Another factor that makes them less attractive also is that they're made out of metal. One of the predecessors to the modern mobile home included military structures like the Quonset hut, which was developed by the US Navy after World War I and which was in turn inspired by the British Nissen hut. And there were many other types of prefab homes built from excess military materials, including lush-brown houses, which used enamel-coated steel for its walls.
Which are
and
still
shipping
around in the
container
South.
homes. But because these are made from metal, these homes tend.
Oh my God, don't get me started on shipping container homes. They don't work. That all started as a joke in architecture school, and then contractors just took off with them. There's very few successful shipping container homes, mostly because once you start cutting into, you see here, when you start cutting into the structure here, you start. Sorry, I had to cut out a little bit.
Quite caught on with the public despite their affordability and rapid construction time.
Yep.
And the negative reputation of mobile homes made people suspicious of the built quality of prefabricated housing compared.
And that was always a justified thing, right? The build quality. Since your fabricating was so fast, that was always the issue. A lot of the issues you would hear a lot often, or you guys may have heard this or seen it while you're growing up, was the creaking floors, right? That's because they're using 2x4s for the floors, things of that nature. Also, the very nature of these are actually on top of usually like a brick exterior foundation. You have, if you don't compensate for that the sag, then that's when you get the creaking.
To traditional site-built homes. And another place where they were experimenting with military surplus to make prefab homes was in Europe. After World War II, there was another surge in demand for prefab houses as a way to create housing quickly for homes that had been destroyed during the war. So this is the Maison Tropicale by Jean Prouvé. Jean Prouvé was a great French modernist architect. And he experimented with prefab construction using military surplus materials after World War II. This house was actually intended for the French colonies, but it gives you a sense of the designs he was creating at the time. And what I really like about it, starting on the exterior, is that he creates this brise soleil, what we also call sunshades, because it was intended for the tropics, to prevent direct sunlight into the inside of the house. The other thing he does is he has these prefabricated vented parapet panels to create this balcony. And I also love that he created these very simple rails where he just takes a piece of stretched canvas and then sort of strings it to the metal structure,
it's a very cool
almost like
structure.
you would with a sail on a boat.
Just because it's so the
So
ingenuity.
what's really remarkable about this house, as say compared to like a shipping container,
He doesn't like shipping containers either.
This house, while it's built from a kit of parts, is done in a.
And I think that's the reason most architects are against shipping containers is it's not solving a problem, right? There's no problem. The shipping containers are still being used constantly. There were just people buying them, mostly like GCs, to cut costs and build this. And I was saying in the previous, before we got cut out, was that as soon as you start cutting into the container, you already sacrifice the structural integrity. So you had to reinforce it with studs. So you're already going to lose 5 inches interior, right? Or unless you do an exterior structure. So whatever you start cutting out, you have to reinforce, you have to put insulation, you have to bring it up to code. So basically you lose a lot of space because you're going to use a shipping container. We did one project, I believe, where we're using shipping containers, and it was horrible.
Much more sophisticated manner that truly speaks to the
Yeah, it's a beautiful project. I
way
agree.
that Prouvé
The ingenuity, the resourcefulness. I think there was another guy. I believe he was working on a book. What's his name? He basically studied Tijuana's architecture, right? If you look around Tijuana, you see the resourcefulness of the individuals and how they use kits of parts from different houses, garage doors, all this stuff to create these really interesting play on architecture, right? People would say that's not architecture, but it is, right? It's using what's in your surroundings to create these new systems and new styles. So his whole book, I believe his name's Ted Cruz. It's another Ted Cruz. His whole book was studying the methodology of these people that cross borders, right? And how their homes back home in Tijuana reflect their dreams from across the border.
designed and thought about architecture. So what we're looking at here is one of the houses that he built in the early 1950s that was rebuilt from the same parts here on the waterfront in Queens in 2007. So this house was so well thought out that it was able to be disassembled and then reassembled all those years later. But even though Prouvé's prefab designs were beautiful and innovative, they never really caught on with the French public, and very few of them were ever built. But at the same time, back in California, prefab houses would get a major boost with the program called...
Ian's one of the best architects. I actually worked on a house right above here. So on top of the hill behind this house, you can't see my cursor. Back here, there was a house. So this road right here is called Toyopa Drive, and I did a house back here, and it was overlooking the ocean side. And it was one of the houses that I bitterly hated because around this area in Ian's house, there's all these mega mansions, giga mansions, and it was horrible, right? Everybody's fighting for a view. So this architectural iconic house, heritage site, was being obstructed and infiltrated by all these wealthy families who don't even know what the heck the house is, right? It was just a sad thing to see. Let me see if I could show you guys. We'll go to... So here's where the map where that house is at. Okay. So here's the Eames house right here. Right here. Oh, you guys can see there. So this portion here where they're doing construction, that's the house that I worked on. So we worked, it was for a client. This was like his fourth, fifth home, I guess, in Malibu. And well, now it's getting torn down. When we were in there, they only wanted to do a remodel, and you can kind of see the footprint of what used to be there. I guess now they're gonna completely rebuild it. This here was gonna be higher than this, and there was this whole court argument because the view from what was gonna be the master bedroom here was gonna get blocked out by this house here. So these are horrible, right? So you see here, they're poor little Ian's right here, surrounded by all these houses that I'm sure he would have been against. It's still, I don't even remember how do you get access to it. I think there's back here is the access. But yeah, that's little Eames. You can't see it no more. And I believe Gary's house is over here. Let's see if I was standing here. I'm trying to remember. Where was Gary's house? It's somewhere. Somewhere over here. It looks like it's weird. It's like a very weird house. But yeah. So that's EM's foundation. If you guys ever want to visit it, you go up to Malibu, Toyopa Drive. Well, obviously you can't go right now. And that's where that little house is. And I think a while ago it was really cool. LACMA, LA County Museum of Art, they actually had a piece of the EM's house recreated at LACMA. It was really cool.
The case study houses. So this is the Charles and Ray Eames house. So Charles and Ray Eames were a husband and wife architect.
And I would argue that Eames is also the creator of American architecture. A lot of his style, his techniques are still used today, especially his pressure treated use for wood, right? The Eames chair, which is this plywood folded chair.
And design
His wife was very important too.
Created beautiful furniture
Mm-hmm.
as well as great architecture. So the case study houses
Very cool.
was this program.
And you guys will see a lot of this architecture and furniture. Go to LACMA, they have a lot of pieces.
That was intended to be designs for prefabricated houses.
Mm-hmm.
And so a number of very famous architects were employed to design their version of a prefabricated house, and then that would be used in the future to be rebuilt again.
I believe he's talking about the case study houses. So there was this, I think it was after the World War II, there was this push to use all this leftover materials and create these houses that were can be assembled cheap, and that gave birth to case study houses. I think that's what he's talking about.
And a model of each one of these houses was built in the Hollywood Hills of California. And what I love about this house is that they took component parts that you would find to build factories or any other type of very industrial architecture. And you can see it here with these lightweight trusses and the steel columns and the panels, and even expressing the required X bracing for the structure.
That's what I meant when I was talking about Via Siena. They tried to mimic this whole Eames thing, but they didn't do it properly.
The other thing they did, which I really like, is they almost composed it like a Mondrian painting, in that they kept all the lines of structure black, and they filled in most of the panels with white, and the windows, and then they every now and then.
I believe the windows were painted.
Is
I'm trying to remember.
warm and beautiful.
Yeah,
and
it's a beautiful home.
Very
I
affordable,
think
and that's because
I would
it's
love to
made
build this
out
in
of these
3D just to
very
show you guys
common
just
industrial
how
building
beautiful it
materials.
is.
There were many case study
Yeah, it is
houses
case
built
study
by some of the
houses.
greatest
These are all
architects of the day.
the pre-manufactured houses that we're talking about. There's a very famous one in LA. Actually, he's probably gonna show it. It overlooks the Hollywood Hills, and you could still go there. It cost $120, I think, to do the tour. I've done it once, so it's amazing.
Including Richard Neutscher, Raphael
Yep,
Soriano,
all the famous
Craig
architects.
Elwood, and Pierre Koenig. The case
Koenig,
study
yep.
program ran from the mid-40s all the way to
Beautiful.
the mid-60s. It never really caught on because
It's sad, right? Like, if they would have caught on, I think landscape would have been amazing. But it goes back to greed, right? Americans want single family houses. These homes were more like tight knit, enjoying the landscape.
style of architecture, this classic mid-century modern, which we call it now, didn't align with the tastes of most Americans
Exactly.
at the time, which was more
Oh, yeah, we're on the
for
same
the
thought.
traditional type of homes,
Yep.
colonial
Victorian.
ranches and Cape Cod style houses.
Mm-hmm.
And today, only the model homes that were built for the program
Yep.
still exist. Next up, Habitat 67 in Montreal.
Ooh, yeah.
So also in the 1960s in Montreal, Canada,
Hopefully it
there
talks
was
about
another
Toyo
attempt at
Ito's,
solving the affordable
capsule
housing issue
house-
of prefab
hotel in
architecture.
Japan.
And this time it was an apartment complex using modular units.
Mm-hmm.
So Habitat 67 was designed by Moshe
Moshe
Safdie
Safdie.
in the mid-1960s, who at the time was a very young
Look at that
architect.
mono
and this
section.
was his thesis project. And his idea was that you create this new egalitarian housing structure
Brutalist
using
architecture combined with
prefabricated
prefabrication.
units. Well, I can't say enough about what a
That
cool
looks
idea this
amazing.
was and how beautifully it ended up
Yeah.
being constructed. And the other idea he
Like the
had, which was
cantilever,
super
man.
important, was that he included gardens in each one, so that the roof of one unit was the garden of another unit.
I wonder where
And
the
he
core
considered that an essential
is.
ingredient to the architecture
I think
of
it's
any
right here.
home.
You can see it.
And these gardens give this building its unique form. Instead of building straight up, each
Mm-hmm.
piece is offset to create the space for these gardens. So this was part of a whole
A
movement
modern-
of utopian.
A modern version of this would be. Sorry. So this is a modern version of that. Let's see if we can get a better view. So this is Mahanakan in Thailand, and it is a more overcomplicated version of what we just saw. These are all modules and apartment modules that go together in different pieces. We actually did a project on that. Our professor was actually one of the consultants for this facade and waterproofing and all that stuff. So it's a really cool project. So this is like an upgraded version of this project here.
And housing ideas.
Using modern
Large
materials,
brand,
materiality,
super studio.
more vertical.
But this utopian idea ran into some roadblocks. Not only was it expensive to build,
Yeah.
but it was expensive to maintain, and they ended up increasing the rents considerably. So they never did expand it, and they never did repeat it, despite its critical acclaim and popularity.
Oh, that thing looks cool.
And really, it's incredible
Really
and
wanna
innovative
visit it.
design. So
Look
similar
at
to the case
that.
study houses, unfortunately,
amazing.
they ended up being singular constructions that turned out not to be for the middle class, but ended up being for exclusively rich people.
Yep.
As we've seen, prefab homes are most
And he does hit
popular when there's
to the root of the problem, right? All these construction techniques began as a way to solve housing crisis, right? What ends up happening is that it ends up being adopted by the rich. A lot of the homes that we were designing, like the prefab homes, were for the wealthy, people that could afford to create these crazy combinations. Some of the projects we did end up getting were like more for, I think it was transitional housing. But there was always this caveat between the GCs and the city, right? The GC would build them and rent it out to the city, but then the GC would keep ownership like 10 years down the line. So there's always this hidden agenda to design these. So, that was the main goal of these projects.
sudden demand for housing. But sudden demand also suddenly goes away. Most recently, prefabbed housing surged during the pandemic because more people were working remotely. And at the same time, people were priced out of traditional homes. But even with all those reasons,
still
it
priced
still
out.
only makes up 8% of the total housing stock in the United States. And that 8% includes all of the prefab houses that have ever been built and are still standing. Even in Japan, where prefab
There it
architecture
is.
is much more popular than
Capsule.
in the US, it still only represents around 13% of new construction for homes. So why isn't prefab the future of housing? Well, one is the extreme startup costs.
Yeah.
I mean, to get one built, you've got to create a factory, you've got to train a workforce, you have to get all these materials together, and the only way to make your money.
And there's not that many companies that actually that exist in the United States that do prefabrication. If you look at it, there's only a couple. The one I worked for was one of the bigger ones in Southern California, and they shipped to like Utah, Colorado, all these other places. So there's not that many. There's one around the corner from this house here, and they're more local, but it is a huge cost. You got to buy all your materials up front, so they got to look at the market. So one thing that our the PM did, he would look at the price of wood and all this ahead of time, and when the wood would drop to a lower price, he would buy a bunch because you had to predict, right? A lot of the newer ones, they try to go in partnering with GCs and all this stuff to offset the cost of manufacturing. So you can get in with the GC and contracts like that. I think where it shines, and I think where it wasn't spoken here, the invention of prefabrication has helped in a lot of schools. So if you look at any school now, chances are 90% are prefabricated. We've done schools up to 5 stories high, prefabricated structures, giant steel column, steel structures. So this technology, this methodology, I think it did good in the end because it's allowing for the schools to be constructed. And oftentimes these schools with prefabricated modules go through very rigorous testing. They come in from the city, from the county to check, inspect everything, the welds, everything. And oftentimes, to me, these schools are safer than the houses. So, yeah.
Back is to sell a lot of them.
Yep.
And it's unlikely you'll ever reach that economy of scale because consumer tastes are fickle and not everybody wants the same type of house.
Exactly.
And unfortunately, because they are more affordable, people assume they're of lesser quality, even if that's not the case. But that doesn't mean prefab architecture isn't worth pursuing. Even if it doesn't ever dominate the housing market. It has many great and noble aspirations.
Yes.
It reduces the environmental impact and
Yes.
is a sustainable way to build. It increases the affordability of housing as it comes up with all these great ideas for the housing of people after natural disasters when their homes are wiped away. Look at the work of Shigeru Ban, for instance.
I love
who does
Shigeru,
these
and I have a book
incredibly
on him.
innovative designs.
He's
to house
Carn
people
Rolls.
after-
So yeah, so I think he does end it pretty well, explaining. He's a very awesome architect. You guys should check him out. Explaining why it doesn't work, right? Economy of scale. People don't want them, even though they could look cool as heck. People don't want them. They have this idea that they're cheap, but they're not. I think that's what surprised me when I started working in prefabricated modules was that the base of these things are like 4x4 inch, quarter-inch steel all around. So they solved the issue about the creaking floors and things of that nature. So that was, I think he's really well put how he explained it. And then just quickly, I wanted to show you some of the projects that we did. So this is a project we did for a prefabricated transitional housing. You kind of see here, there's this half-inch divide between these units. So the whole module, for example, would be, this is a module. Let me put some color in there. So we'll call this module A. Give me a second. There you go. And then we'll call this module B. And we have one more module. This whole thing, I believe, was a module. Okay, there you go. So this is the premise, right? So the premise is you prefabricate these in a factory. So this module, everything's prefabricated. There's a half-inch gap between, so it's a 1-inch gap. So it's half-inch this way, half-inch this way between each of the units. You want to, oh, sorry. So that's one module. Your second module, usually it would be the stair module, where we try to keep the stairs in one area. You can see the full length of this whole unit is 52 feet. And I believe a truck, that's the maximum you could get for a truck bed. Let's check. And these units, oh no, these full units are 52. This one, let me get a measuring. So that one looks like it's going to be 15, 24, a little bit less than that. Where's my measuring? I haven't used Blueprint. There you go. Where's my settings? It's because they update and they take off all your settings. Okay, so what is that? I don't like that. I don't want it to move. So that's one module. And this is the second module. And this is the main module. So this is what's going to get shipped out in that truck bed. I think width-wise, they're only 20 feet, just the maximum. So I think these kind of overhang a little bit from the truck bed, if I recall. And then they needed like this super special long truck bed to ship these out together. So these are all one module. Sorry. So that's 1, 2. There you go. So that's those, right? And then here it gets a little more tricky. So here we shift it. So the modules, what the heck? Here, the modules flip like this. And you'll see there where they see that double stud, that's where it ends. And then we'll have another one here. So another one here, right there, and another one here, and I believe this one right here. It's another one. It's been a while. And then the last one would be this portion here. So that's kind of how the system works when you're going to design these. I believe there's a roof. Same with the roof. You would have first floor modules, second floor modules. So the roof system as well was going to be attached already. This is already going to be built when you ship them out. And the next part is just more details, lighting details. I'm trying to see if we can see. I know we did sections. I know we did shop drawings, so we want to see those. So this is a typical unit here. You kind of see this is a half of a unit, so you're going to see this system, one of the double loaded corridor. Let's see. I'm trying to see. We can see the section details. It's been a while. Interiors. Oh, there you go. So there you go. So we call it a mate line, basically. So this is where two units meet. So you have a unit one on this side, and this is where it ends. And then you have a 1/2 inch gap between them. And this is going to be your typical construction for these type of units. Usually we'll leave so we'll leave maybe, I believe this portion doesn't get built. This gets built on site. So when you get on site, you line them up and then you fill it in with this material, which is what you'll see in the exterior elevations. You see a band that comes down, right? So yeah, so that was your typical prefabrication that I worked on. Here you can kind of see this is a book. So you guys want more information on prefab architecture by Ryan Smith. And this goes over all the history of. Let's see if I can. It's a big book, so we'll see. Oh my god, I am like out of it with my programs today. Alright, so so this is a great book that you guys can buy off Amazon, Kindle. It goes through all the prefabrications, the history, and then it goes into the different eras to modern, I believe. 300 is, yeah, so here it goes into the actual the constructability and what's being used, and it just keeps going and going and going and going. So it's a great, and here you have some crazy ones that are being built. So it goes into more details of items and things of that nature, prefabrication homes. So this was called Prefab by Ryan Smith. So check that book out. Anyways, hope you guys liked the video, the response to that video. I think that was a great explanation of prefabrication and why we don't see it as often now, or why it's kind of dying down. It has become a key point that I want to make is it has become a rich thing. All these prefab homes you see are for the rich. The cost has gone up to just build one because you're taking space in the line to build one home instead of thousands, right? Design wise, it hasn't really improved. Not a lot of firms are doing them anymore. Container homes suck. Won't change my mind on that. But yeah, hopefully you guys liked the video. Let me know, click comment down below. Let me know any other videos you guys want me to review, look at. Go buy your guys self a pen, Lamy. They're amazing. And have a good day.